Generative AI is getting better all the time. And imagining what it can be used for is really exciting.
This is going to be as big as the internet, or possibly bigger. It's going to be, many people have compared it to fire or electricity. It is a very transformative technology. Many of those uses of AI are unproblematic and indeed very helpful.
Kids now at home can become the next Steven Spielberg because they have an amazing imagination, and now they don't need cameras and actors in a studio and tens and hundreds of millions of dollars to create a movie. They just need their imagination.
But it's also presenting a whole new set of problems.
That's the sort of thing that I think we have to look at in this AI. How much is technology and how much is the hand of the artist and the soul of the artist?
When we live in a world where any image, any video, any audio, anything you read online can be fake, well, then there's no more reality. And how do we live in a society? How do we combat climate change? How do we combat injustices in the world? How do we have open and free elections if we can't agree on basic facts? And our job is to figure out how to leverage that technology while keeping individuals and societies and democracies safe.
It is extremely challenging for policy and law to keep track of the incredible pace of development of these systems.
So, how are our lawmakers keeping up with the rise of AI? Until recently, no government has implemented laws or policies to help manage this rapidly changing technology. But now the European Union, or the EU, is one step closer to a milestone in AI regulation. The European Parliament has approved the AI Act, which is the first ever legal framework to regulate artificial intelligence.
We have a duty to recognize this potential because it is going to be the technology that will be driving us into the future. And at the same time, there are risks, there are concerns that the intersection between this technology and our individuals' rights and the interests of our societies.
The regulation works in a tiered system, where the riskier the AI, the more regulation it gets.
A lot of what it does certainly makes a lot of sense. So they have high-risk tiers of certain kinds of systems, and then systems that may pose unacceptable risks that may be banned. So for example, systems that can be capable of superhuman persuasion are considered bannable systems.
Superhuman persuasion means the ability for AI to influence human behaviour and decision-making. Citizens living in the EU will also have the right to know whether they are interacting with an AI system, such as a chatbot instead of a human. Live facial recognition technology will be heavily restricted in public places, and all AI technology will have to fit the requirements for what the EU now calls trustworthy artificial intelligence. Off the back of this act, the US led a resolution at the United Nations to encourage countries to safeguard human rights, protect personal data, and monitor AI for risks, while recognising the potential of AI to make the world better.
We're resolved to bridge the artificial intelligence and other digital divides between and within countries through capacity building, increasing digital literacy, and other actions.
It was backed by more than 50 countries, including Australia. So yeah, Australia supported the UN resolution. But what is our government doing here at home? In a report released earlier this year, the Australian government proposed some guidelines for AI companies, but they're only voluntary.
We want to design voluntary safety standards right away and be able to work on that and be able to get industry to understand what they're supposed to deliver and how they're supposed to deliver it. And deliver then longer term through the setting up of an expert panel to guide government in creating mandatory guardrails on high risk areas around testing, transparency and accountability.
Experts say that this approach will put us behind the regulation that's already happening in the EU, US and China.
It's a little and it's a little late. There isn't much concrete and much of it is in terms of voluntary agreements with industry. And as we've seen in the past, having them mark their own homework is perhaps not the best idea.
With proper regulation, experts say the benefits of AI will outweigh the risks. It's just a matter of working out exactly what those regulations will look like.
Our regulators have to protect us. The same way the regulators protect us in the food we put in our body and the medicines that we take and the airplanes we fly in and the cars we drive in, they have to protect us online.
One of the core questions around regulation is, how do you structure regulation so that it has that flexibility that you need to adapt rapidly to these new changes while still retaining the fundamental bedrock of an ability to actually retain kind of general control?
Looking at what sorts of regulation and guardrails need to be put in place, we certainly can't just have a free-for-all. We certainly need to think carefully about the guardrails in which we can allow the innovation to happen.